Mercury stationing retrograde. This is happening in very short time. It is around the turn of a day here, so your time zone is going to be very important in knowing when this is occurring. For me, in East Coast time, it's happening on Friday morning in the wee hours at 12:45 a.m. So for you, it might be happening on Thursday. It might be happening later in the day on Friday. For me, it is right at the change of the clock overnight. And the retrograde station, which is the beginning point of the retrograde. We've been in the shadow period for some period of time. So if you've already been having some little hijinks, it's understandable. The stationing is the formal retrograde beginning, and that in your chart, you want to look for 15 degrees of Leo. This entire retrograde is contained within the sign of Leo. So we're only looking in this area of our chart, but we want to understand the full degree point. So the range is 4 degrees to 15 degrees. So as we're going through our charts, you could have just one house in there, but you could have a second one in case there's a line split, in which case you'll want to pay attention to that. So to give us a little bit of background here, Mercury is the planet of communication, thinking, the mind, mindset, travel, technology. Leo is the fixed fire sign, and it is a performer. It's playful. It's very creative, wants to self-express, known for its ego and being very prideful. Retrogrades tend to have a bad reputation, especially Mercury retrogrades, which is the one that people hear about the most in pop culture. But you can think about a retrograde as a period for healing. Retrogrades with Mercury have classifications of tech issues, communication issues, travel snafus. So it could be like typos, miscommunication, missing a flight, things like that, as well as kind of brain fog, like mental fog. You just kind of feel a little bit out of it. And that's because the energy that we have is we're reviewing those degree points. So we entered the pre-shadow period, which was on June 30th at 4 degrees of Leo. So since then, until this Friday, we have been in that space. So what we're going to be redoing, the retrograde is retracing those degree points. So you can start thinking about what's happened in my life since June 30th. And we may have issues that pop up, communications that need to be revisited or corrected from that period of time. So we can reframe this retrograde as an opportunity, not a huge obstacle or trial or tribulation, an opportunity to rethink our processes, our language, reductive thought patterns. How are we approaching things that are just not helping us, not supportive in any way? And then when you fold in the house area, so whatever house or houses are between 4 and 15 degrees of Leo, we can contextualize where in our life we need that type of review. How do we need to change our thinking, improve our communication, all that good stuff in that area of life? In general, having a Mercury retrograde in Leo, broadly, without the house factored in, is bringing a flair to our thoughts. Leo wants to kind of be big, be seen. So there could be considerations as well to how you're presenting yourself. It could be your creative expression, feeling comfortable or really not within the spotlight. and how our egos are handling when wires get crossed. What's our patience with that? And this also could be a great time if there's a creative project or outlet or hobby or something that you have put on the back burner. You can use a retrograde period to go back to something that you have dropped or that you haven't really finished, that you put off in some way. So there's ways, of course, that you can spin this, that it's not just, a big weighty experience, because it's opportunities to correct the record, to make an improvement. And when you're bringing in Leo, we're thinking about creativity, we're thinking about self-expression, our ego, our pride, our sense of self as an individual through that experience, plus whatever the houses are that we're chatting about. So just quick other dates for reference, just to rattle these out so we have the full timeline. The pre-shadow period began June 30th at 4 degrees of Leo. Then we have July 18th at 15 degrees of Leo, Mercury stations retrograde. Mercury remains retrograde until August 11th. So that's when it reaches that 4 degrees of Leo from the pre-shadow again. And it starts going in direct motion, starts moving forward again. And now it's retracing for the third time the same degrees of 4 to 15 Leo. Once it reaches 15 Leo, then it gets out of the post-shadow period. So when it's in direct motion but retracing that third time those degrees, that is the post-shadow. The post-shadow concludes on August 25th. So that's when it reaches 15 degrees of Leo. So the full time period of this retrograde, June 30th, start of the pre-shadow, to August 25th, approximately 2 months. From that point, we'll go back to a regularly scheduled programming with Mercury, where it just spends a few weeks in a sign, and that'll keep going. And then we'll have our third retrograde period later this year. For this Mercury retrograde, Jen, 5th house. So 5th house for Leo, that's a house of creativity and play. Like Leo's probably loving being there. So it's already infused within this retrograde, the Leo themes, but you kind of have it doubled down by having it in the 5th house. So you're really, really reflecting on shifting your communication around, or again, related to technology, related to travel, how you are approaching play, pleasure seeking. So that can take shape through dating, through just trying to have fun, connect to your inner child. So you could do reflection work, like let's say you wanted to do some shadow work questions for inner child. You could do that. You could connect to some nostalgic hobbies. So it's doubly encouraging you to do a look back. So if you want to kind of be nostalgic, you could play into that as well. But you also may be a little bit more intellectually just reevaluating how you are prioritizing fun and creative expression within your life. Are you doing it enough? Should you be doing it more? And yeah, maybe there's something that you've put on the back burner that you could be revisiting that does bring you joy, that does allow you to just relax and chill. 9th house is looking at long distance travel, teaching, learning, spirituality, religion, astrology. It could be revisiting learning that inspires you, that feels fun, that feels engaging. It could be revising something, revising something that you wrote that maybe is a speech or something that you are supposed to be presenting or that you want to share with people, but you have to go through an editing phase for it. Because the 9th house is also associated with publishing. So rather than actually putting out your materials, you're going back and you're editing during the retrograde period. And because it's in Leo, it's something that we really want to feel proud of. Like this is representing us authentically. So take the time that you need. At minimum, you're going to have a couple weeks for the super concentrated retrograde, but for the full shadow period, you have a full 2 months where you could really dedicate the time to make sure that it feels aligned with you. If you were traveling, as an example, if you're on a long distance trip or you are watching a show or reading a book or taking a class or doing something that's allowing you to expand your mind and learn about the world, you could, if you're impacted by the mental fog, have a little bit of that maybe disjointed feeling or somewhat of a disconnection to it. But alternatively, depending on how it's affecting you, it could just be saying, well, what does this really mean for me? Where am I finding my joy in this? How am I approaching this situation? And how am I bringing it back to my sense of self? Related, kind of. If you're looking at the first house is identity and your physical appearance. So reflecting on who you are. And it's in Leo. Leo, in a lot of ways, is capturing the sense of self. It's you as an individual, you standing out. So you're thinking, how am I expressing myself? How am I presenting myself? Like with my appearance, with the things that I'm sharing, with who I think I am, what I want to be. It's a lot of kind of existential questions, but Leo is playful at the same time. So it wants to be fun. It wants to be enjoying the process of it. So it doesn't necessarily any of this have to feel like it's some sort of a hardship. As I mentioned before, it's just we have to check in with ourselves. And Mercury retrograde in Leo, that's kind of a great way of synopsizing it. We are checking in with how we are thinking about, talking to ourselves, talking about ourselves to others. And when you have it in your identity house, it's the same thing. How am I effectively communicating who I am authentically to make sure that people are understanding me, who I am as a person? So some really big evaluations that you can explore during this time.